Jason Hart with Media Trackers Ohio is with us. Jason, how you doing tonight, sir?
Cam, I tell you what, I'm gonna have to cut out here. I can't miss this Fluke speech. I've been waiting for it for months.
DVR it, buddy. You know, I mean,
what's she gonna say?
I know you're.
On the edge of my seat.
I know, really. Is there an empty chair besides Sandra Fluke? No, I don't think so. All right, so Jason, listen, I got to tell you guys, you at MediaTrackers.org, you and your colleagues have been doing some really fantastic journalism. Digging into emails, submitting Freedom of Information Act requests with the mayor's office in the city of Columbus, and you found some pretty incredible stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, we're doing what we can.
Absolutely. So last time we had you guys on, we were talking about Mayors Against Illegal Guns, working with the mayor's office there in Columbus on a couple of anti-gun issues. And now your latest piece is that Mayors Against Illegal Guns not only working with Mayor Coleman to try to stop Ohio's governor, Governor Kasich, from signing a pro-Second Amendment bill, they did so even after was this the mayor's spokesman denied that they were doing this?
Yes, and actually, believe it or not, all of this is from the same records request. Jesse Hathaway, who's been doing the research for these stories, who drafted these stories up for us, he got just reams and reams of emails that have bounced back and forth between Arlie Roberts, who is the Ohio coordinator for Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and Mayor Coleman's office, and offices in New York, and then other groups here in Ohio, namely ProgressOhio, which is a largely union-funded far-left group. And it's very interesting. The last time we spoke, I know we talked about the way that Mayors Against Illegal Guns and Mr. Roberts in Mayor Coleman's office and ProgressOhio all coordinated some campaigning that really I feel like was beyond the pale. There was a shooting here in February. Obviously, anytime there's a shooting, there are groups around the country who try and jump into that and use it for campaigning in Mayors Against Illegal Guns. We had some pretty clear evidence that they had done that. The stories that we've run this week are about a bill that was passed by Ohio's legislature last year. Both houses, the Senate and the House, in the Ohio General Assembly, are currently run by Republicans. There's a variety of squishy to moderately squishy to mostly reliable Republicans in the two houses of the General Assembly. And they passed a pretty good bill that made it legal for people to carry concealed weapons in more public places than they previously could. And naturally, this is just unbelievably horrifying to the folks at Mayors Against Illegal Guns.
Right.
And the one thing that really jumps out is as you look through these emails, the illegal part of Mayors Against Illegal Guns is purely decorative.
Oh, of course.
They brag about how bipartisan they are, and they really have duped a lot of Republican mayors of small and large towns in Ohio and across the country into signing on. But they're not against illegal guns. They're against guns, and they're opposed to anyone owning or carrying firearms, regardless of how they got them and whether they're following the law or not. So,
yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting, Jason. At one point, one of these emails, this was from Bloomberg Firearms Policy Coordinator Janie Roundtree, said in an email that a guy named Brett should, quote, definitely do the outreach since this isn't a Mayors Against Illegal Guns issue. But it was a Mayors Against Illegal Guns issue because Mayors Against Illegal Guns and this firearms policy coordinator, they kept talking about this bill that they said wasn't a Mayors Against Illegal Guns issue, right?
Exactly. And Janie Roundtree, the firearms policy coordinator or director or whatever her title is, she's one of several people that works in Mayor Bloomberg's office in New York City. Her name showed up repeatedly in the emails that we saw when Mayors Against Illegal Guns was trying to coordinate with other left-wing groups, trying to capitalize on these shootings. And her name came up a lot as we're looking at this specific policy, this specific concealed carry bill that passed through the legislature last year. And like you said, that quote I thought was especially interesting. Brett Thompson is the policy director, at Progress Ohio. Again, Progress Ohio is a fringe left. Think of every way out there: environmental, anti-Second Amendment, big government, higher taxes, more spending, less freedom. You name it, that's what Progress Ohio stands for. And Brett Thompson works pretty closely with Arlie Roberts in Mayor Coleman's office, who is the Ohio coordinator of Mayors Against Illegal Guns. And they all work closely with folks out of Mayor Bloomberg's office in this particular instance, most closely with Janie Roundtree. And she also kind of looped in a guy that writes for the Huffington Post, who has served as an MAIG consultant in the past.
Oh, yeah, Cliff Schechter, I think, right?
Yep. And he provided some insight, basically just agreeing with something that the executive director of Progress Ohio, Brian Rothenberg, had said in a previous email. Quote, "Everyone seems to be of the mind," and Hallett covered it in that great piece this weekend, that Kasich is really a suburban Republican at heart, which is to say more socially liberal and on this issue a supporter of gun control as he was in Congress. And so the guy that he's mentioning there, that the great story from the weekend, is a guy that writes for the Columbus Dispatch, and it's interesting. He writes op-ed pieces, but he also contributes to news pieces. And in his op-ed pieces, there's always a pretty clear left-leaning slant to his own perspective, but then you can turn the page, and here's the same guy writing on the news page. So I thought it was kind of interesting that he was identified by name specifically by this Huffington Post contributor and Mayors Against Illegal Guns media consultant.
That is interesting. Now, a couple of things that we need to point out. First of all, Governor Kasich actually signed the bill into law. So the Mayors Against Illegal Guns folks, the folks in Mayor Coleman's office, did not get their wishes.
Right, and we actually split this up into a couple separate stories. And yesterday we ran a post about some of their efforts to block it in the state legislature. You can see we posted all of the emails from the records requests that relate to this on the website. So if you read the story at ohio.mediatrackers.org, you can click through and you can see all of the interesting quotes and dig through there, and you'll probably find a couple of kind of entertaining things that we missed just because we couldn't fit them into a reasonable length story. But they tried to work the legislature. They targeted a number of Republicans in the Ohio House, tried to block the House version of the bill, and then when it was clear that that wasn't going to work, they kind of shifted gears and tried to put a little bit of pressure on Governor Kasich. So it didn't work out for them in this case, but another quote from the story is Arlie Roberts, the Ohio coordinator for this organization, who works in the office of Columbus Mayor Michael Coleman. He said that, balls. Of course, I was looking right at it, and now it's gone. Here we go. It might also be worth considering doing a campaign aimed at DeWine to reassess out-of-state CCW permits when the inevitable happens. In this case, Roberts is referring to the inevitable as Governor Kasich signing this legislation. So you can see this isn't just kind of a one-off where on this particular issue, Mayors Against Illegal Guns is actually coordinating with Progress Ohio and trying to block a pro-Second Amendment bill. As they can see that their efforts here are kind of circling the drain, they're already thinking ahead to the next thing and to the next campaign that they can work towards. So, again, what we see throughout these emails is hand-in-glove coordination between staffers in Mayor Coleman's office in Columbus, staffers in Mayor Bloomberg's office in New York City, and then folks like Progress Ohio. And in the previous story that we discussed the last time I was on, even Media Matters for America, depending on how big the story is, occasionally gets pulled in for a consultation. So
yeah, I mean,
that doesn't tell you where they're coming from. I don't think anything would.
You know, I mean, again, Jason, and I realize that, these emails talked about Joe Hallett, the reporter and columnist for the Columbus Dispatch. But, whoever the City Hall reporter is for the Dispatch, I mean, the paper should be covering this. This is a real real story, particularly the involvement when you've got, the mayor's spokesman who says, no, we didn't, there was no Mayors Against Illegal Guns lobbying. Clearly there was Mayors Against Illegal Guns involvement in the mayor's office in lobbying for this bill. This is a legit news story, and frankly, the Columbus media should be picking up on it.
Right, and it's, I think, an interesting aspect of the story is the overlap between the work that Roberts does in Mayor Coleman's office.
Mm-hmm.
It qualifies as work for Mayor Coleman, and then the work that Roberts does that qualifies as work for Mayors Against Illegal Guns. Because even though his salary is paid for by Mayors Against Illegal Guns, there are certain benefits. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I know that at least
pay into like a
retirement. He's paying into a public employees retirement system, and obviously, if he's using office space that's owned by the city, and there's any number of smaller and you could argue trivial things that he would have access to, but being inside of Mayor Coleman's office, just from these handful of emails that we've dug through, we found a spot where there was a statement that Dan Williamson, the spokesman for Mayor Coleman, was trying to piece together to get some kind of reaction out there officially from the mayor himself. And Roberts suggested, maybe Mayor Coleman should talk about this shooting that happened in the parking lot of a bar in April 2011. And this is a direct quote from the mayor's spokesman saying, that would draw attention to the fact that people already take guns to bars and that this law will have no real effect on that, end quote. And then in a following email, there's a one-word response from R. Lee Roberts that says simply, touche. So these guys work together, even though Williamson is employed by the city of Columbus. He works in the same office as this Mayors Against Illegal Guns guy, and it's obvious and completely predictable that there would be some level of overlap, some level of coordination between the official Mayors Against Illegal Guns state coordinator and other members of Mayor Coleman's staff.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, Jason, really appreciate you coming on the program tonight, sir. Do you have more stories on the way?
We do have some more coverage on the way of this issue. I don't know how much else we've got going on. I've been working on some coverage of PolitiFact Ohio that, kind of like the stuff we've done about Mayors Against Illegal Guns, hasn't really cracked through, broken into the legacy media here in the state, because we are a conservative outlet, and so it's a little bit difficult sometimes to send people stuff, and they see right across the top that Media Trackers is conservative, and I think we kind of get written off out of hand regardless of the quality of the work that we're doing, just because we're upfront about the perspective that we have in our work. So we'll keep hammering away at it. We'll keep doing our best to uncover interesting stories and report on things that the Dispatch and the Plain Dealer and all of the TV stations around the state just can't be troubled to cover, and we'll see where we can go from there.
All right. Well, listen, Jason, really appreciate your time again, and look forward to doing this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.